Hey there, this tutorial should be fairly quick. It's nothing fancy. It's kind of an introduction for the next one. I just want to make sure that you know how to use spawn controls and metadata to kind of keep your graph clean and very procedural so that you can add to it fairly easily. So all we're going to do in this one is we're going to create a control per joints for the fingers of this character. This is not how the Benjamin is currently set up. This is something that is only possible in 5.1, and Benjamin was rigged in 5.0. So it's kind of a new approach, yeah, let's dive into it. You see the graph is fairly simple, so we're going to try to recreate that from scratch. So the first thing we're going to use is the construct event. The setup event has been renamed to construct event in 5.1. It allows us to create controls this time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create control for each of my fingers chains. So I'm going to grab the metacarpal of each of my fingers. So I'm going to do that in order. The index, the middle, the ring, and the pinky, and I'm going to create an item array out of that. Uh, and I'm going to start looping over each of those items so I can create stuff. Over each of these chain, I'm going to loop over the children. So I'm going to get the children. I want to include the parent. So I want to include the metacarpal bone that I have selected. And I want that to be recursive, so it goes down the chain for all the bones. All right, so now for each of those joints, we are going to create a control. So you can just use the spawn control node. I'm going to give it the same name as the joint. There's no going to be naming conflicts because bones and joints, bones and controls don't belong to the same namespace in a control rig, so you can have bones with the same name as your control. And it's going to be a transform control, obviously. And we're going to connect all those together. And for the parent, for now I'm going to put the hand bone as the parent, and you can see all my controls have just appeared. One quick thing, I have no issue at all parenting controls under my skeleton. I know it's something that is not recommended in other softwares like Maya. We like to keep things clean, separated the skeleton from the rig itself. In control rig, since the rig is only available when you animate, and none of those hierarchy, none of those joints are are visible to the animators, and also when you export your animation, it's not going to take into account any of the controls. It really doesn't matter, and it makes my life easier. So I have no issue doing that in control rig. All right, so we created the control per bone. That's great. They all at the position of the hand right now. So the first thing is we want to organize them in the same hierarchy as the joints. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a parent. I already created this parent variable because I was testing stuff before this tutorial. So what we're going to do is we're going to say that, well, at the beginning, we're going to say that the parent is the hand bone. So I'm going to grab this hand bone over here and I'm going to set it. And then I'm going to get that parent. So uh, before, before we loop over the children, I want to set the parent to be the hand bone. And then I'm going to use this to be the parent for everything. So for now, it hasn't changed anything. Everything is parented under the parent, under the hand bone. But now, every time I create a control, I'm going to set it as the new parent for the chain. So boom. Just like that, everything now is in the same hierarchy as the original bone chain. So that's great. That's exactly what I wanted. Last thing I want to do, I mean, two other things I want to do is actually change the shape of that control and also make sure that they are aligned with each finger. So what I'm going to do simply here is I'm going to grab the transform of that bone, get transform. I'm going to grab the local transform, and I'm going to set that as my offset. So now they are all on each bone. The visibility of the shape isn't great, so I'm gonna go inside the options here, and I'm probably gonna make that like a square, and I'm gonna change the transform to be probably much smaller, 0.2 maybe here, 0.2, and I also think I need an offset in Y. Let's compile this. Okay, that's pretty good. I would like to rotate that. Unfortunately, it takes only quaternions, and quaternions are hard to read, so I'm just going to input Euler rotation instead. And is that on the x-axis? Yes. Cool. So I just created a control as a chain for each of my bones. And yeah, just in a very simple graph now. If I add another chain to this original array, it's going to generate the controls automatically. So that's pretty procedural, pretty happy with that. So now, in my forward solve, I want to drive those bones now from each of those control I created. So I'm going to take a similar approach where I'm going to loop over each bone and each child of the bone. So looping over each element and actually each children. Should have copied all that all at once, but that's fine. Loop over the children and like this. So now, how do I get the control that I had? Well, I've named it the same way, so I could just find the control that has the same name. But one thing I like to do is use metadata in case my naming is different and it's giving me more flexibility. So what I'm going to do is for each control that I create, I'm going to store the control as a metadata of the bone. So here, for each bone, I'm going to do set metadata. I'm going to call the metadata control. And it's going to take the control as an input. And I'm just going to plug that here. So now each bone is storing the control as part of its metadata. So now when I'm here, I'm still looping on the bones, and I'm going to be able to do get metadata of the control, and we know it's a rig element key. And from here, I'm going to get the transform, and I'm going to set the bone transform from the transform of that control. So just like this. As you can see, now all my joints are controlled with the bones. So that graph is also fairly simple, nothing much here, very procedural here. I would probably put all that inside a function so that I can use that wherever I want. But here, a good example of how to use the spawn transform control and some metadata to store some information between the construction graph and the forward graph. That's it for now. Thank you.